Hello everyone. Although diamond and netherite tools are a very popular choice for Minecraft playthroughs, I would argue that using iron tools has many benefits that aren't often talked about. Don't expect this to be a video about item stats and game mechanics, but instead a video about why certain playstyles can be more fun than others. One quick disclaimer, the reasons I'm about to list don't apply, at all, to hardcore mode. So if you're an avid hardcore player, then carry on as you were. For everyone else, let's review 4 reasons why I find Iron Tool Minecraft to be more enjoyable. I'll go over the obvious reason first. Playthroughs with iron tools require less grinding than those with diamond tools. While diamonds are pretty rare and require mining through vast portions of deep slate, iron can be found pretty much anywhere. If you choose to opt out of enchantments, which I would recommend, then you've also saved yourself a lot of unnecessary XP grinding and villager trading. This might sound nice, but some of you probably have a reasonable point to level against this. Wouldn't removing the grindiness from the game take lots of the fun out of it? Well, to answer that question, let's move on to the second topic. I would argue that Minecraft, or any game for that matter, gets most of its enjoyability from challenge. Note that challenge can come from pretty much any aspect of the game. It can come from surviving, from creating nice looking builds, from wiring redstone circuits, and, to tie it back into what I just said, challenge can also come from grinding. Switching from diamond tools to iron tools affects the challenge of the game in 2 major ways. It reduces the challenge that comes from grinding, as I just mentioned, but it also increases the challenge of normal gameplay. When you have fewer armor points and weaker weapons, it takes a lot more skill to progress through the game without dying. There's a fundamental difference between these 2 types of challenges that I'd like to point out. I'd argue that surviving is challenging because it takes a lot of skill, but grinding is mainly challenging because it takes a lot of patience. Now, this next part is obviously subjective, but I personally find the first type of challenge a lot more immersive. Although I can understand why certain people can enjoy the relaxing nature of grinding for resources, I prefer to play video games for action rather than passive resource gathering. So basically, to sum this all up, limiting yourself to iron tools allows you to have fun by ramping up the challenge in previously mundane areas of the game. The only downside to having a greater difficulty curve is the fact that you will occasionally die. Luckily, iron armor has the ability to help you out on that front as well. Although playing without armor makes the game a lot more difficult, it also minimizes the amount of progress you lose due to deaths. Playing with netherite armor is mostly foolproof, but there's still a few ways things can go off the rails. Void damage, the wither effect, the inner dragon, entity cramming, and forgetting to box yourself in while AFKing, all have the ability to kill you regardless of how much armor you have. And if you die with all the gear you spent days grinding for, then that's going to hit pretty hard. However, if you're using unenchanted iron tools, dying couldn't really matter less so long as you didn't bring any other valuable items with you. This means that you're able to enjoy the game's challenge while still facing minimal consequences if you mess something up. There's one more reason for doing an iron-only playthrough, and although it's kind of a weird dynamic to explain, I still think it's a very important factor. So, the final thing that makes it more enjoyable is that it limits your projects to a smaller scope. Now, this might seem like a bad thing at first, but there's actually a lesson to be learned here not only within Minecraft, but about creating things in general. When you have too many degrees of freedom when working on a project, it can actually become more difficult to complete it. It's kind of like how people experience choice paralysis when faced with too many different choices for ice cream flavors. When you have too many options, you somewhat lose the ability to actually focus on the options that matter to you. This lesson is also applicable to iron tools, in the sense that their limited speed, power, and durability forces you to make practical considerations about how you're going to go about a project, instead of brute forcing its completion. This makes doing projects with less powerful equipment a more engaging and rewarding process. To me, it seems as though these small projects are what Minecraft survival mode was originally created for. While updates to the game have somewhat changed this, many artifacts of the older version still remain. Although it's technically possible to create a project at pretty much whatever scale you would like, things like limited inventory space and scarce access to certain resources can make it very grindy, as mentioned before. Before the end of the video, I'd at least like to briefly talk about other items that can impact gameplay in the ways I just mentioned. First of all, enchantments. Enchantments go against most of the things I just talked about by virtue of requiring grinding and giving higher stats. Certain enchantments are somewhat necessary, so I would argue that Silk Touch, fortune, and looting are all fair game, but I would recommend keeping tools of those enchantments in storage rather than applying said enchantments to your main tools. Diamond pickaxes are also in the same camp, since they're necessary for obtaining things like obsidian and ancient debris. It makes perfect sense to keep a diamond pickaxe in your storage for when you need it, but using a diamond pickaxe as your main tool defeats the whole purpose of the stuff I just mentioned. The final item of interest is the elytra. Elytras by themselves don't really go against any of the things I talked about. The game can still be pretty challenging even with the ability to fly. That being said, there's also nothing wrong with giving up elytras and replacing them with more interesting methods of travel. So, there's an overview of a less popular Minecraft playstyle and why I think it's enjoyable. Feel free to try it out if you want to. Also feel free not to. It doesn't affect me either way. If you do try it out though, hopefully you'll find it entertaining and won't die that much. With that, let's cue the end screen.